It will affect minorities, the old, the young, and the poor. 750,000 people in Pennsylvania could be disenfranchised by the state's new voter ID law. It could swing the election in Mitt Romney's favor, which is what state Republicans have wanted all along.
Voter ID, which is going to allow Governor Romney to win the state of Pennsylvania. Done.
Can't be plainer than that. The Republican-appointed Commonwealth Secretary initially claimed that just 1% of Pennsylvania voters would be affected by the law. Turns out those numbers were off. Way off. 9.2% of registered voters in Pennsylvania could be turned away from the polls this November. How did they get it so wrong? Says a Pennsylvania Department of State spokesman. We were asked to provide that information in a very short period of time as the bill was moving through the legislature. In fact, the spokesman told the CBS affiliate his department only took a day and a half to compare U.S. Census data to PennDOT records. The newest analysis took about 2 months and compared PennDOT records to voter registration polls. A county-by-county look at the new law shows Democratic strongholds will be hit the hardest, mainly Philadelphia and Allegheny counties. How hard? Enough to turn the state red. As the Philadelphia Daily News reports, the total of just these two counties, 286,048, is more than 3 times the total votes former Democratic Congressman Joe Sestak lost by in his 2010 Senate race against Republican Pat Toomey. Toomey beat Sestak by 80,229 votes. But now the law faces a legal challenge. A July 25th hearing is scheduled in Commonwealth Court. It could possibly reach the state's Supreme Court before the November election. Joining me now is the legendary Reverend Jesse Jackson, president of the Rainbow Push Coalition. Reverend Jackson, welcome on the show.
You, sir. What a subject.
Well, Reverend Jackson, let's get right to it. Is this a poll tax in disguise, in your opinion?
Of course it is, Michael. The Republicans won in 2000 by the margin of discounted votes. In 2004, they won by the margin of dry, unused machines and people in lines all day long. Always some scheme to deny or to suppress the vote. In Ohio, 1,100,000 have been purged from the rolls. And you cannot vote the weekend before the election. Schemes to deny easy access. So in Pennsylvania, the 750,000 will determine the winner of the election. And that's why Eric Holder's role as Attorney General is so important.
That's a very key point. Do you think legal action is the best way to fight this? There are a variety of options available. Which do you think is the best?
Well, litigation to enforce the legislation. We got the right to vote in 1965 after 100 years of denial. Now, let me remind you that blacks could not vote in the South, Dr. Dyson, but white women couldn't serve on juries, and 18-year-olds couldn't vote. You could only vote on Tuesdays. It became inconvenient to vote. So these schemes of challenging in Texas today, students can use a student ID, cannot use student ID to vote. They use gun registration to vote. So these schemes of voter denial are in 38 states. And I really think that we should commend Attorney General Holder for, in fact, fighting that fight.
Well, tell us, and you're the perfect person to do so, how this could impact the election.
Well, because big elections are won by small margins. Kennedy beat Nixon by 110,000 votes, less than 1 vote per precinct. In 2000, Bush won by 2,000 votes, and the vote stopped, other votes uncounted. So big elections, small margins. And so in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, and Illinois, you could very well determine the winner based upon voter suppression or voter involvement. As Americans, we fight wars for democracy abroad. Why can't we fight for easy access to voting here? Whether you're 18-year-old or black or Latino or woman or senior, why can't we have on-site same-day registration? We have the technology. We have the desire to make democracy real for all the people.
You mentioned Attorney General Eric Holder earlier, Reverend Jackson. Do you think all of the brouhaha occasioned by his, being so, I think, rudely mistreated by Congress and being held in contempt is a smokescreen to distract us from the reality that Eric Holder and his office is really trying to deal with voter abuse here, and the very thing that you're speaking about is being in some sense marginalized because what's at center is his particular character. Do you think it's all a red flag there and a red herring?
I think so. Matter of fact, in South Carolina, he gave a speech in South Carolina and found that the impact of voter suppression had a disparate impact upon black and brown voters, for example. He's been a champion fighting for what is basic, easy access for every American to vote. We've had some big positions in government, Secretary of Commerce and Housing and the like, but none more key than justice. Just to fight for an even playing field. That's the American dream, where every American has a fair chance. And the Department of Justice is that department that gives us that chance. That's why getting him distracted would be a goal. But I'm glad he's not going to step away, not step down.
From the living icon, Reverend Jesse Jackson, thank you so very much.
Thank you, sir.
Coming up, the God particle. Find out why it's such a big deal and why it might be a bad sign for research here in the United States. We'll be right back.